Hello, my name is Havla Gianetta, and welcome to the final reading update from my GoFundMe campaign. This is an excerpt from the final chapter in which I visit an old friend and one of the mystics who helped raise me shortly before she passed away. I begin every excerpt with a quote, and this one is from a song called Lonesome Valley by the Fairfield Four, which was popularized in the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? You got to go to the Lonesome Valley, yes, sir. You got to go there by yourself. Nobody else, nobody else, nobody else can go for you. You got to go there by yourself. And again, those were lyrics from a song called Lonesome Valley by the Fairfield Four. Have you visited the Cistercians lately? Maribel asked. Don't cry, Havla, you are not going to cry. No, I haven't, I shrugged, avoiding Maribel's gaze. I didn't think dropping by to see the nuns would be as fun without getting tipsy first with you and Deb. She tried to laugh, but coughed hoarsely instead. I needed to be more careful. Even her breathing sounded ragged. I miss Deb, Maribel sighed. The nights we would pray at her house when God's presence just... She closed her eyes and inhaled, like she was remembering the scent of a favorite perfume. Those were good times. But now here you are with so much life ahead of you. What are you up to these days? That's a great question, I quavered. I've been temping since June, and I thought I'd be going to South Africa next year, but apparently I'm going to be a writer, not a missionary. A writer? Maribel furrowed her brow. Well, that's different. What are you going to write about? I shook my head. I'm not sure. It's not like it's the career I've been planning for. None of the prophecies turned out the way I thought they would. I mean, they did, but they didn't. And Mom keeps asking me what my plans are, and I don't have anything to tell her. And I know she's disappointed in me. I caught my breath, fighting the tears that were already creeping down my cheeks. Usually I can see some basic parts of the future so that I know what steps to take, but when it comes to next year, I can't see anything. The only visions and dreams I'm having are about right now. And I know it's better to walk by faith than by sight, but without vision, people perish, you know? Oh, my dear girl. Maribel reached out to squeeze my arm reassuringly, but her grip was so weak that I barely felt it. It's not supposed to happen like this, I thought. I'm supposed to be comforting her. But I couldn't stop myself. I clasped her withered hand and pressed it to my lips before breaking into sobs, unable to hold back the weight of my own failures. My dear, dear girl, she repeated. Do you remember what you told me the first time we met? I stared into her gaunt features, reflecting. It was hard to believe that this frail woman with white hair and tumors bulging out all over her arms had befriended me only 8 years ago, when I was still in high school and she'd still looked remarkably young for her age. The day we met, I began with the vague feeling that I was telling a child a bedtime story. You told me that you were in love with your friend. Brad, she interrupted. Yeah, Brad, I grinned. And you said that you thought you might marry Brad someday. But as soon as you said that, I had a vision, and I told you that in the vision you were standing next to Brad, but he walked away. Then I saw another man step up behind Brad and take his place next to you. I couldn't really see his face, but he was a tall man with flowers in his hand. Maribel smiled weakly, then gestured toward the exquisite arrangement of roses above us. You see those? I glanced uneasily up at the bookshelf. I noticed them as soon as I came in, I nodded. They're so bright it would be difficult not to. Maribel's eyelids fluttered briefly up, then closed again, as if even looking at them was a strain. A man named Keith gave those to me. After Brad and I lost touch, Keith and I met a few years later, and he loves to send me flowers every chance he gets. So you were right, Maribel beamed in satisfaction. Keith was the man you were seeing all those years ago. I forced myself to look up at the extravagant bouquet of striking Olympiads, their scarlet petals turning crimson where the golden lamplight touched them, their velveteen tips curling to a point that looked almost sharp. The roses stood triumphantly over the room, over the dying white woman and the tired black woman and the crying brown girl. Their presence was vivid, flagrant, as if they were saying, who cares about the smell of death and sickness filling up the air? Who cares about all your sadness over the people you think you've lost? Love is here. Fill this place with praise. I do love Keith. Maribel smiled again, but then her expression darkened. I don't know if I'll be able to marry him, though, she said faintly. Keith's a trucker, so he has to travel a lot for work, and he's still taking care of his mother, so he only visits when he can. Maribel's gaze grew distant before she turned back to me. But you never said that he would be my husband, Havala. Just that you saw a man. Well, I sighed, cradling her hand in mine. Just because you don't marry him doesn't mean it isn't true love. I know something about that. It's 9 o'clock, Miss Maribel. Time to take your medicine, Shirley called from the dining room. Oh, I didn't realize how late it was. I should probably go, I mumbled, petting Maribel's hand before I released it. I'll be praying, and I promise I'll come again, okay? Right after I get back from Richmond Hill. She nodded as the nurse came into the room with a container of pills. See you soon, dear girl, she warbled. I promise I'll pray too. I looked at Maribel one last time before closing the front door behind me and stood for a moment on her front steps, thinking how grateful I was that I decided to visit her on a whim. And it was a good thing that I did, because when I returned a few weeks later to tell her what God had done at Richmond Hill, Maribel was gone. Right, that is my final reading update. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to contribute to my campaign, I'm going to put more details below. And again, this is the final update. This is still a work in progress, and I'm trying to finish it as soon as I can. Thanks so much.